What's up, Boilermaker Nation? Welcome back to the channel. I'm here with your complete breakdown of Saturday night's 34-17 victory over Southern Illinois. And wow, what a way to make history underneath the lights at Ross-Ade. Now, before we dive in, make sure you hit the subscribe button and ring that notification bell where we're covering every Boilermaker game this season. And you don't want to miss out on any analysis that I've got to take, even as a newer channel here. So let's start with the headline here that Coach Barry Odom, he just became the first Purdue head coach to start his tenure 2-0 since Cleo O'Donnell did it way back in 1916. That's 109 years. Very impressive. And as Coach Odom said with a chuckle after the game, I joined the club of Cleo. Historic stuff is happening over in West Lafayette. So let's kind of talk about first the good. What went right in this game on Saturday night? So first of all, we got to talk about Devin Mockobee and his breakout performance, the senior captain, who he carried this team on his back, in my opinion. So 32 carries for 126 yards and 2 tutties. His first multi-score game of his career. Both touchdowns came from the 1-yard line in that beautiful Wildcat formation. Not the first time we've seen that this year. That Coach Odom and his offense coordinator, Josh Hinson, have clearly been perfecting something different, something unique. We've kind of talked about the Boilermaker way in terms of we need a spark on this team, something different. And this is definitely something that we've not seen on the Purdue side. So what I love about Mockobee's performance is just overall his consistency. He didn't have any kind of crazy explosive 40-yard runs, but he was grinding out 4 to 6 yards consistently, wearing down that SIU defense. So his 3.9 yards per carry average isn't something necessarily like jumps off the page, but when you watch the tape, you see him running through tackles. He's doing everything he can to get extra yards, and he's setting the tone for this offense. So clearly establishing the run game was exactly what we needed to see after a pass-heavy approach against Ball State. We rushed for 215 yards as a team, with Ryan Browne adding 50 extra yards on 9 carries of his own. So this shows the versatility that Odom's willing to put into his system. We can beat you through the air, or we can put the ball on the ground, depending upon what the defense is showing us. And I think as Purdue fans, especially looking at what we had kind of seen in the previous 2-year era of what did not go well, was not adapting to what the defenses were showing us. Odom is clearly willing to do that. So that's a breath of fresh air if you are a Boilermaker fan. And Ryan Browne's efficiency was pretty great as well. So I want to give him credit where credit is due. 14 of 23 for 170 yards and 2 touchdowns with just 1 interception. Again, nothing crazy that like jumps off the page, but he's basically just doing what needs to be done given what we're seeing from a defense perspective. So, I mean, you can't really ask for much. Yes, it'd be great to see, 300 yards in the air, but a Boilermaker win is really kind of all we're after here, right? Especially against a relatively tough SIU school. We can't forget that while it is just SIU and we were, I believe, a 19.5 point spread favorite, and we probably should have covered, but we obviously didn't. I do think that seeing Ryan Browne get some stuff done was also a good thing as well. So those 2 touchdown passes in the first quarter, he had a 13-yarder to Ahmad Branch and that beautiful 29-yard slant to Nitro. They were perfectly placed balls that tied the game when we desperately needed answers, because let's be honest, SIU came out blazing, and I think a lot of people kind of thought, whoa, we might be in for a game here, right? That's what I thought when I was at the game. I thought for sure we're going to be in maybe a little bit of dogfight here for the first half. But Ryan Browne also showed great pocket awareness and mobility, scrambling for some pretty crucial first downs when the pocket was breaking down. That 12-yard scramble that set up Mockobee's first touchdown was a perfect example of Ryan Browne's football IQ. So again, another breath of fresh air, something nice to see on the Boilermaker side from the past couple years that we've been kind of seeing a little bit of stagnant offense, except for the exception If you think back to last year against Illinois, and who was that quarterback? That was Ryan Browne. So kind of interesting to see how that's kind of working out. Makes you kind of wonder if we should have been playing Browne all last year. My hot take is that we should have been, but it is what it is. Let's talk about some defense adjustments. After giving up, 14 points in the first quarter, again, kind of thought, whoa, what's going to happen here? The defense locked down after that. From the 5:08 mark in the first quarter until 7:41 in the fourth quarter, SIU gained just 79 total yards. That is complete shutdown defense. Odom made adjustments, and that's what you'd like to see, right? We've talked as Boilermaker fans, even as a new channel, but we've talked as Boilermaker fans how we just want to see adjustments. We want to see competitiveness. We want to see passion. We want to see them out there trying and making the adjustments needed to win ball games. And while, again, SIU should be a lock win when you look at the calendar, again, those first 2 touchdowns starting the half in that first quarter, again, made us kind of pump the brakes. And, we kind of think, what are we going to do? Odom made the adjustments, especially on the defensive side. The final numbers, 3 sacks, 7 tackles for loss. And most importantly here, they forced SIU into costly penalties, right? There were a lot of penalties. I really don't think any of them were questionable once you actually paid attention to the film and saw the replays. I think they were the right calls. I know SIU probably kind of felt like they were kind of basically getting a little bit of not fair treatment from the refs, but if you go back and watch the tape, I think they were the right calls. Trying to be unbiased, I can't hear with that. The defense generated pressure without having to blitz constantly, which is exactly what you want to see from a different defensive perspective, right? So let's kind of talk about the concerns here, areas for improvement, because let's be honest, it wasn't the prettiest game. So there was definitely a slow start on defense. That was pretty obvious. That is the elephant in the room. The first quarter defense performance was just not there. It's only the second time in Purdue history that we've trailed an FCS opponent, and SIU made us look uncomfortable early. They did. I mean, we looked like, oh crap. Now, we were responding offensively as well, which was great to see, but the defensive side kind of left us to pumping the brakes early on, especially in that fourth quarter. I know I was kind of really surprised. I think that their offense looks really good. I think SIU is going to do some really great things this year, just from base what we saw against Purdue. If they play like that the rest of the year, especially the way they came out in that first quarter, they probably have a lot of great things going from this year. So DJ Williams, their senior quarterback, he kind of looked like Lamar Jackson out there in the first quarter with that passing touchdown and then a rushing touchdown. He had the 63-yard bomb to McCray on their second drive, and that was just poor coverage and communication. For a defense that shut out Ball State 31-0, this was also kind of concerning, right? You can kind of see where there were some breakdowns and some poor communication coverages, but clearly they've made some adjustments throughout the game, which is something that you like to see. I don't know if it's something that Odom was seeing, that they were scheming up against our defense. I'm not that well versed like the football coaches are, but clearly they found a way to adjust and tweak stuff to put our offense at a better, our defense in a better spot throughout the rest of the game. Now, Ryan Browne's interception, that third quarter interception was kind of frustrating because it came right after we got great field position, right? We were probably going to score there, no question. He held on the ball too long on a seam route and underthrew the receiver. The ball just kind of hung in the air, waiting to be picked off, is basically what it looked like. I think there were 2 receivers there, if I remember correctly. And against better competition like USC next week, we can't give away possessions like that, right? If we get down the field on USC, we are going to have to take advantage of that, ideally in touchdowns, right? I mean, a field goal isn't bad, but we're going against a good USC team. We are going to have to capitalize on those field positions. We also got to talk about some penalty discipline. SIU hurt themselves with some penalties, and we can't rely on opponents to make mistakes like that, especially USC. We need to be the team that forces errors through great plays and not hope the other team beats themselves, right? We've either got to complete some of those passes. We got to scheme up some better ideas. We've got to make sure that we can't rely on a penalty coming against the safety or the DB to basically bail us out and give us a free 15 yards. We can't bank on that, especially against USC or really, quite honestly, the rest of our schedule, right? We cannot afford to do that, especially if we want to win games and we want to try to cover that 3.5 wins for the year. I do think, just from watching the 2 games that I've seen, I feel like Purdue's going to pull out the over on that 3.5. I really do. I think just looking at the Big Ten as a whole, our schedule doesn't do us any favors, but I do think it's possible. So let's kind of talk about some key individual performances from the stats from the game. Devin Mockobee, as I mentioned, 32 carries, 126 yards, 2 tutties. Ryan Browne, again, 14 for 23, 170 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 50 rushing yards. Receiving leaders, you had 9 different Boilermakers that caught passes. We had great distribution across the field. George, the tight end, was the reception there. That was great. And then, obviously, Andrew Bem, I hope I said his name right, from SIU. He had 16 tackles, 10 solo. Got to give some shout out to that kid because he was everywhere on the defensive side. We have to give SIU credit. They played a really good game. They really did. We just kind of locked down the defense there once we made some adjustments. So let's kind of talk about some different team stats. Purdue's rushing attack was 215 yards in total. This is going to be the identity that Odom wants to establish for sure. You can tell that he's going to try to put the ball on the ground and trust his senior in Devin Mockobee to carry this offense. SIU's rushing defense held us to just 81 yards. That's solid for them, but we found ways to move the ball when it did matter. And the time of possession and third down efficiency numbers aren't available, at least as of my recording, but the eye test shows me that we controlled the game once we actually settled in. So, I know that we led the time of the possession whenever I looked up at the board when I was watching the game, but I did not have those stats as of this recording here. So let's take away the big picture. I think Barry Odom's system is beginning to take shape. I think we can kind of start to see what we can expect for the rest of the season. What I'm seeing now is a coach who adjusts his game plan based on personnel and the opponent. And again, not to beat a horse, but as Boilermaker fans, that's something that we have been just wanting to see. Right? We just want to see, can we make adjustments? Can we fight back when we get hit in the mouth? Are we going to, hit back? And Barry Odom is definitely doing that with his hard, smart, tough mentality. Week 1 against Ball State, we threw for 340 yards. Week 2 against SIU, we established a run with 215. To me, that's coaching. That is coaching. We clearly have some great athletes on this team. I know many people pick Purdue just to play like total dog shit, if I'm being honest. But Odom is clearly showing that he can coach these guys. And I feel like that's all that we're kind of asking for here. So Coach Odom's quote after the game kind of stuck with me here. He said, "We know that we're going to have to be a running team that opens up things down the field. And he understands that this roster and what it takes to win in the Big Ten. And that's going to have to be establishing a running game with this offense. That's just really what it's going to take for us to be able to stay in games. We do not want to give high-powered offenses the ball back relatively quickly. If you think back to the Browne era, those were always shootouts. And I think Odom's going to kind of bring the opposite approach. I think he's going to try to ground and pound, and like you said, use that to open up the air and then use that to kind of keep the defense on their toes, keep them honest. And that's a really good thing. Very nice to see. So I do think this is a good confidence-building win. Again, while we didn't cover the spread, we could have, but we know that SIU, is not Ohio State, but confidence in this team for me matters, especially in college football and what the last 2 years have looked like, especially last year, more so than anything else. Getting the confidence from going 1-11 last year under Ryan Walters, this is a huge step forward, in my opinion, even though it is SIU. They need to feel what winning feels like, coming back again from getting hit in the mouth. I think they're getting that taste as a team, and it's refreshing to see. We've now jokingly doubled last year's win total, so I guess that's a win. The psychological barrier has probably been broken a little bit. I think everybody's going to come in feeling good, this weekend. I think they're going to come in thinking, hey, this is a USC team that if we bring everything and we scheme some things right and we do all the right little things, we can actually fight in this game. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, USC is clearly the favorite, but I think our chances with Odom are tremendously better than they were if we had Walters. So let's keep some perspective here. We've beaten Ball State and an FCS opponent. Good teams should handle this schedule, right? There's no problem. We should be able to handle this. The real test is obviously going to come this Saturday when USC visits Ross-Ade. We'll really see how much progress this program has made under Odom this Saturday. I think we will really get an eye opening of, how he's scheming stuff, how he's making adjustments, because he's clearly going to see much better people on both sides of the football. And so he's going to have to really step up his coaching game to be able to make this a football game. I do think Browne and Mockobee are going to be vital in terms of us having success and making smart plays. And then clearly just, the receivers being in the right places and making some tough catches. I think they're going to have to really work that defense of USC to be able to squeak out a win or even stay in the position to be able to strike if they get downfield. And we're going to have to capitalize on that, as I mentioned earlier. So let's kind of look ahead at USC really quick. So 3:30 kickoff. It's going to be a completely different level of competition, again, from what we've seen. The Trojans have talent. Clearly that Ball State or SIU does not have or match. So I think this game will test everything that we've seen so far. Can our offensive line protect Browne against this power 4 pass rush? Will Mockobee find the same running lanes against USC front 7? Again, are they going to fill those gaps? Are they going to limit how many yards he's able to get? Because he did chip away a lot of yards when we really needed them. I think USC is going to be much harder to do that. Personally, I think we might even see some more passing game to Mockobee as well. And then can our defense handle the speed and athleticism of this new Big Ten USC team caliber type receivers? That's also going to be huge. Can our defense hang with them? Because last year our defense got shredded by offenses like this. So we got to hope that Odom has not only made coaching adjustments, but the personnel that he's brought into the transfer portal will be able to be a step up in terms of the caliber athleticism to maybe be able to hang with the USC receivers. So in my opinion, the keys to victory against USC, if they really want to shock the Big Ten, the college football world, and move to 3-0, this is what I think they're going to have to do. They're going to have to establish the run early again with Mockobee. USC will be expecting us to throw based on what they saw in the Ball State game, I think. And so I think using Mockobee and that Wildcat package to control the line of scrimmage will be huge to set up what we can do later on in the game. So establishing that early. I think we've got to have a no turnover game. I think if we go with no turnovers, we'll be in a much better position because we know that USC will capitalize on every error that we have, right? That we do not want to give USC any advantage on the field side from getting interception and getting yards or picking up a fumble from Ryan Browne in the backfield. We don't want that to happen because that will really kick us while we're down, especially if we are down. Obviously, there's home field advantage being in Ross-Ade. We need to bring it at Ross-Ade. We need to have everything sold out. Crowd needs to come rocking. 3:30. I think people are going to be having a good time. I know I'm personally tailgating with my family and friends. We'll be bringing the energy. I think it's the biggest home game we've had in years just because of what we went through last year with Walters. So, USC, we've not played them, I think, since the late 90s. So, you're talking about a long time since we played them. I really think the one advantage we have as well is that the travel for USC that's technically be a noon kickoff game for them, 3:30 for us, going to let our guys sleep in a little bit, eating that home cooked meal, doing all the little things. You really cross your fingers that kind of gives us a little bit of edge on the physical side there. But this is, in my opinion, probably the biggest home game we've had in a while, again, just because of the Walters era. If we rock out of here at 3-0, I think it's really possible that, hey, now we very well could be knocking on a 6-6 season. And that makes you think that we can compete with more people in the Big Ten, even though USC right now isn't the USC they usually are. It's something that, we could potentially walk into a game that could be a dogfight. Again, if we do all the little things right. So here's what I'm excited about this team. It's the adaptability. Odom is showing that he can win in different ways. So week 1, it was definitely an aerial kind of clinic. Week 2, ground and pound against USC. I think we're going to need both. I think we're going to have to throw the ball well, and we're going to have to run the ball well to be able to hang with this team. Mockobee looks like a legitimate Big Ten running back. I mean, I've always thought that he's good, but Browne is clearly using him to a much better and smarter position and advantage and play draw up than Walters ever did. Browne is managing games well and making some big throws when needed against smaller opponents and schools, but I think he's still doing the right things. The defense, despite the slow start on Saturday, I do think they have the talent to be competitive. I think they're better than last year. I think there's no question there. I think we are making some mistakes, but again, we now got 2 games in. I think they got some things they're going to work on this week. I think they're going to scheme some different things up to throw at USC. To be able to do something, because again, this also is going to be one of the more challenging games the USC's had this year. So I think both teams will come in looking to do some different things than they have in the previous weeks. But let's not get too carried away. We're 2-0 against the teams that we should beat, right? We're kind of we basically have the 2 wins that everybody thought that we were going to get, and we did. And I think we've played better in both those games than what people thought we were going to, especially against Ball State. I think SIU, you take out that first quarter, those 2 big plays that they basically got to get those big yardages. I mean, Purdue looked really good there too. And again, that turnover costs us as well. So there's again, the little things, if you can kind of fix those, that would have been a pretty monstrous win against a FCS ranked SIU. And then the schedule obviously just gets exponentially harder after Saturday against USC, right? We're then at Notre Dame, and then our real gauntlet of the Big Ten kicks in. So I think the foundation is being laid here, but the real construction project really kind of starts right now against USC, doing all the things right against this USC team. Even a loss for me, if we have no turnovers and we're making smart football plays and we're doing the little things, and you can tell Odom is holding them accountable and really coaching them up and putting them in places to succeed. Even a loss for me, that's a win. Obviously, we cover the spread. To me, that's a win. But obviously, we would love to see us take down the USC Trojans in Ross-Ade. Let's keep it real. We would love to see that. So let me know, Boilermaker Nation, what do you think of Saturday's performance against SIU? How do you feel about the Barry Odom era? I mean, let's be honest. 2 games in, you got to be thinking if you're like me, thinking some great things, or do you feel like you need to see more against better competition before you have a better thought process of him? Let me know in the comment section below of this video. Again, make sure you're subscribed. I'm gonna have a full preview of the USC game coming this week as well, plus the post-game analysis after Saturday's big game. I'll have that a couple days afterwards. But remember, this game is going to be in Ross-Ade, 3:30 p.m. I'll be there tailgating in the W lot with friends and family. Catch the game on TV if you're not able to make it as well. So appreciate you tuning in for this episode for the Smitley Report, and that's the Smitley Take.